The one company I think I have to single out is Renault Nissan. As you know, it's a joint venture between Renault and Nissan. The CEO, Carlos Ghosn, is actually the person who coined the term frugal engineering in 2006. When he went to India and he was very impressed by the Indian engineers' ability to innovate faster, better, cheaper than the French engineers. And that's the concept that has evolved to be known today as frugal innovation. So why Renault has been a pioneer of frugal engineering? Well, in 2004, they first launched a car called Logan for only 5,000 euros. Okay? And initially it was destined for emerging markets, and to their surprise, it became a bestseller in Western Europe. And today, they have a whole product line called Dacia, which is built on the same kind of concept, and that accounts for over 40% of the revenues today. It has become the cash cow. And they have sold over 5 million units since 2004. Okay? Of course, they didn't stop there. Then they asked the person, Gerard Detroube, who invented, the engineer who developed the Logan car, to now go to Chennai, India. Why? First of all, to study how chaotic the traffic jams are and how bad the roads are. Again, remember, like Intuit, to see go in the field, to develop empathy for the users. Why Chennai? Because out of Chennai, they actually set up R&D lab, one of the biggest labs set up by a car company in India. And in that lab, unlike other car companies, they didn't just create a new car. They created a whole new car platform. It has never been done before by any MNC in India, or actually China. And a car platform, as you know, is basically the foundation of the old cars. So once you have a car platform, and this is called the CMF-A, and the A stands for affordability, ultra affordable. This becomes the foundation to start building many, many cars. And the first one that came out is the Quid in 15, for the price of about $4,000. Okay? Now, they're not stopping there because already they have achieved, this is a great success story because they have about 10 million cars sold from these platforms, the CMF. But remember in the spider graphic, I said, affordability, simplicity. But what about sustainability? It's still using petrol, fuel. Right? Well, that's a beauty. Once you start with that foundation, you can do this. Gerard is in China right now, using the same platform to create $8,000 EV. You can imagine how disruptive that's going to be. Okay? So they're again reusing, right, the same platform for multiple models that actually integrate all these attributes I talked about earlier. Okay? So this is about the business model. Then I talked about going one step further and think about, how do we inculcate this frugality in the mindset, which I call, frugal mentalism. Here I want to share some examples of companies who are doing something quite disruptive and potentially, I would say, creating new paradigms in areas like customer service. So this is the example of the Leroy Merlin. They are the #1 rival of the Home Depot, home improvement retailer in Europe. And they are converting the last mile. You always think last mile from a supply chain perspective, right? So I am here and I make products, manufacture, distribute. That's the last mile. The customer, you are here. They are turning it on its head. They're saying the last mile becomes the first mile. That's where R&D starts. So that's why they're converting the stores in France and Europe to become maker spaces, or what we call, how many of you know about maker spaces? So maker spaces are like workshop areas. It could be as big, no bigger than this. That's how it started. It's called also Fab Labs. But in this case, it's 2,000 square meters. Equipped with 3D printers. The kind of industrial tools that you only find in a high-end factory are now made available for everyday citizens. So the idea is the following. Next time your washing machine breaks down, you don't throw it away. You take the defective part, go there, and you 3D print replacement part. Okay? Similarly, you don't go to IKEA to buy a chair, you go there to build your own chair. So the old kind of old capitalism motto was, I consume, therefore I am. Now the new motto is, I create, therefore I am. You have to figure out a way to get the customer to co-create with you. And if you go there to Paris, you can go visit this interesting shop next to Paris. And it's also becoming an accelerator, an incubator for hardware startups. A lot of citizens come and they develop something for themselves, and then they're like, wait a second, this is so good, I can start a company out of it. It's becoming the kind of the next wave of hardware startups as well from these locations. So this is also a way of thinking about value creation differently than the traditional paradigm, which is pushing products to customer. There's a way to start pulling products with that. Another area of frugality, which is very nascent, which is in the B2B sharing. This is something that is very exciting. If you think about the sharing economy, many of you know about Airbnb to rent, an apartment online. You know about car sharing. This is consumers, us sharing stuff. This is the B2C sharing economy, which is estimated to become about $350 billion by 2025, according to PwC. I think that there is another big part of the B2B sharing economy, which is the B2B sharing. What happened? Because you see, any trends, we have all been in the tech sector for a while, in my case 25 years, any trend that starts in the B2C, I would say, close attention, because it gets into enterprise. In this case, it's not enterprise, it's intra-enterprise. It's going to be inter-enterprise, B2B literally. Okay? So what I mean by that is, what happens if businesses start sharing assets, resources, employees, clients, intellectual property? Sounds very radical. That's already happening. For example, this is a solution in India launched by Radjou. Radjou was the former CEO of Escort, the tractor company, and he's now at 60, starting a company called EM3 Agri Services. This is the Uber for farmers. So a farmer presses a button on his phone, and a guy shows up in a tractor, says, I'm here to help you harvest. Okay? They're starting to share equipment. Again, fixed costs have to become very low. It's not just equipment, assets. It could be services, like, how can I use, less. Have you heard this amazing initiative? I mean, anyone here from Andhra Pradesh? Kudos to you. How many of you heard about what happened last week, the big announcement for Andhra Pradesh? So Andhra Pradesh is going to become the first state in India to become zero budget farming. That means they will use no fertilizers, no chemicals in farming, and yet keep up with demand. So check it out, it's called zero budget farming. So the point I'm making is that the challenge, there's a lot of farmers committing suicide in India, and they have to keep up with latest trends. So this is the idea is it's not just about offering the equipment, but they can also offer this advisory services for the farmers to transition from a chemically based farming to organic farming, right? And scale it up. And then it gets even more interesting. In Europe, they are way ahead, by the way, compared to here. This is in Netherlands. This is called the Flow2. It's a B2B sharing marketplace, which enables hospitals to share their idle assets. If I have an MRI machine, which is underused, I can open it up to patients from other hospitals. Why not? I have to optimize the use of assets. Right? It's a win-win. Right? So we see a lot of interesting frugal approaches here to reusing and sharing assets and resources among companies. Then comes the last one, which is important to becoming frugal here, is how we deal with natural resources. And especially being in California, I don't have to tell you that water is going to become a huge problem for us. And this is an interesting, scary graphic actually. If you take all the water on the earth and you model it as a sphere, this is what it looks like. And all the drinkable water is a tiny droplet. This is what we have for 7.5 billion people today. And when we have 10 million people by 2050, well, forget about 2050, look at this. Within 12 years, we are going to overshoot. That means we are going to be consuming more than we have in terms of supply of water. Right? So we have to learn to do more with less, starting with water. And so I'm going to wrap up with these last examples to illustrate this other big paradigm which is emerging. It's called the circular economy. And this is the idea of, how many of you know about the circular economy? Okay, so this is very well developed in Europe, and India is picking up now, and China has a national policy around this, and India is going to also go big time into this. This is about recycling, reusing on steroids in a nutshell. Okay? The idea is to say that in the old times, you take raw materials from Earth, you make an iPhone, use it for 2 years, and then get rid of it, and then you upgrade. And this goes into landfill. Right? Plastic, single-use plastic, right, which is polluting. It's a 6th continent now, as you know. If you take all the plastic on oceans, it's equivalent of a 6th continent. Right? It's how much plastic we have. So this new model says, no. You have to design products now in such a way that there is no end of life. There's end of use. Once you finish using it, I pick it up and I recover the materials inside to make new products. This is called cradle-to-cradle design, as opposed to cradle-to-grave. This is cradle-to-cradle. You reuse again and close your fashion. And this is being applied by many companies now. The company that makes these carpet, there are only 2 in the world. It's called Interface, American company, and Target, European company. They both are committed to this. By 2025, both want to become a zero waste company. No way, none of the carpet will go landfill. You'll be able to recycle again and again. Okay? Now, it gets very interesting because next time many of South Indians, we like filter coffee. All of us like filter coffee. And don't throw it away. Because with coffee waste, you can come up with 24 applications like cosmetics, fertilizers, etc. There's a whole cottage industry developing with startups to recycle coffee waste. Or in the case of Levi Strauss, they have a collection that uses recycled plastic bottles to make 8 plastic bottles to come up with 1 pair of jeans. Okay. So this is in the product side, which is very exciting. But there are companies now who are applying it to the whole organization, big companies. This is Unilever, which has this bold plan to double the revenues by 2020, reducing the carbon footprint by 50%, go from $40 billion to $80 billion at the same time, reducing the eco impact. And you can imagine how large a task is, and yet they pulled it off very well. They become a zero waste company last year. That means that no waste is generated by the factories that goes to landfill. And they have about hundreds of factories, you can imagine, right? So they managed to do that with the circular economic principles. They also have now energy positive buildings. So it's not, that's why remember in the frugal innovation I put values, I said ecological value. Generally we put that in the denominator. We say reduce carbon footprint. It's not enough. The next level, game-changing level would be I have to enlarge my ecological handprint. Can I do more good for the planet than less harm? Right? So this is the example of Unilever, new headquarters in Paris, which actually uses solar energy to offset power consumption of 150 houses around. So every building and every factory has to become energy positive. That's kind of where these companies are going. And they even do one step further, which is they even share the intellectual property with other companies. For example, they came up with this idea to use less aluminum in the deodorant, 45% less aluminum, which reduces CO2 emissions by 50%. And after having 2 years of exclusivity of the technology, they shared it with even rivals. Why? Because they want the whole industry to move up in terms of performance of sustainability. Okay. So that's a kind of enlightened, mindset we need. If you want to get the whole industry to accelerate, its performance in terms of sustainability. And this, I swear, is the last slide because we're all tech people, so I thought we at least one tech to include. Because I want to connect the circularity, which is an obsession lately for me. Because coming from India, see, in India we don't have notion of time. Time is linear. This is my new obsession. Because in the Western world, we always see time linear, right? There's a big bang, there's Genesis, there's a big crunch, there's apocalypse. Very linear. In the East, it's circular. So if you apply circularity to even knowledge, then we have a circular knowledge economy. That means, instead of reinventing the wheel, how can we reuse existing knowledge and technology? Right? And if you apply that, for example, to the tech field, it gets interesting. For example, these are going to be the building blocks of next generation medical devices. It sounds ridiculous, right? Wait a second. What? You can create a medical device with $35? Well, this is Raspberry Pi. Many of you know about this probably. How many of you know about Raspberry Pi? So many of you know that, right? This is actually a computer-sized credit card developed at Cambridge University, and 15 million units have been sold around the world. And with this now, you can revolutionize healthcare. For example, at Cambridge, there's a startup called HeartFab Technologies, and they deal with the congestive heart failures problem. So when you have a heart failure, when you go home after surgery or something, there's a remission. There's a risk that relapse. Sorry, the risk that you have another heart attack. So how do you control that? You can't keep getting the patient to come see the doctor, right, for test. So this actually uses, I think, 4 or 5 Raspberry Pis, and this is set up at the bedside. So when the patient wakes up in the morning, it actually monitors the ankles to see if there's an inflammation. It's called peripheral edema. If there is an inflammation after 2 days, it goes to the cloud to analyze data. If it's really serious, it contacts the doctor, so you can remotely check and see if it's necessary to come see the doctor. Now what's fascinating is that this technology actually is the same technology as facial recognition. They just reused it. That's what I'm saying. Reuse what you have. Recycle everything you have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel again. So that is the kind of concluding message. Summarize, it is possible to do 100 times better with 100 times fewer resources. These are the 3 ways you can think about adopting food innovation. There's more info in my book about that. And then I think the clock is ticking, seriously. I mean, we have to get going with the food innovation. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Navi. That was inspirational speech. By heart, most of the Indians are Ducati. We love free stuff. We love 30-day free trials. And we love 100% occupancy for cars are Indians. So, but today you taught us how to make it, turn it into a business case and use it for social cause. So thank you. On behalf of GitPro, so please wait for 5 minutes. So on behalf of GitPro, I would like to invite Tapish to hand over the slides.
At the end of the day, if I have to give introduction, then it will be a problem. So, almost 5 years back, GitPro has launched one competition. It could be called an acronym MIFI, My Innovation for India. And I remember that just like this concluding session, I did a big announcement and there was big applause. People did claps and all that thing. We had online kind of form, and then people would give innovation. We made a press release, it got into PTI, and PTI published all over India, lot of press. You can Google it, you can find it. We did for 2 months, we got only one kind of an email on that. No one, not in Silicon Valley, anywhere else, kind of submitted their innovation. What's wrong with this, right? And since that day, actually then I had come across Navi's book, right, Jugaad Innovation. I said that no, we need to get him in front of our audience. And I tried, 4 years I've been trying. And here it is. Thank you. Remember one thing, Navi said that he stays in Silicon Valley. We don't see him. Do we see him? No. He's seriously working. Actually, his work kind of speaks. Instead of he goes on talks and all that thing, he is working, he is analyzing these patterns and making contributions really for a long term. So we are really thankful of you. And he does speak, but his speaking fees are beyond the budget of our conference. And when I approached, he said that, Khandarao, if I go to speak, I charge this much. That what can I say? But he actually decided to contribute back in terms of his time and energy. I really thank you. Why it was important? Because GitPro has, as you know, that our first kind of GitPro world programs are much more tech-centric, learn, and we are tech, right? Everyone. But GitPro is about 2 things, right? One is the self-development and also contribute back to the community. And we have always in our motto, everything we say. And that we do lot of efforts, right? And this time we said that, okay, if Navi gets here and he gives a message, it will be more clear. So there are three things, right? We had launched one program called remote mentorship, right? And then, so the idea is very simple. We have this the whole communication kind of remotely, right? We can do Skype and all of that thing. But there are a lot of colleges and schools, like third tier colleges and third tier cities, and those youths and children and all that thing, they need guidance, and we have time. If we can spend, say, monthly few hours remotely, we can connect. And that is the program. We successfully did that in one college, and Chandra is heading that. So if anyone interested, we can basically scale. And then similar, we don't have to take monopoly, but I would say that more and more people can do that thing on their personal capacity or their own kind of alumni and all that thing, but going beyond your own kind of a safe zone and then approaching that would be good. That's one thing. Second thing, that we discussed that during that same NIFI time of we analyzed one thing that we have some talent and all that thing, but we are totally cut off from the problems. We are in our own luxury. And because of that, we can't even think, as you said, that the whole problem, our innovation means that how we can see that milk is not there in our fridge. We cannot open that thing and we cannot, just like, right? So, but then we thought that can we have an idea bank or something. But one thing that we decided that this year we want to have a hackathon for communities. The hackathon's purpose is going to be for how we can use our technology skills and something to solve some problems, community problems, whether it's local or in India. So that is Dharmi around? Yeah, so Dharmi around. So Dharmi and Vasu, they're basically going to head that thing, and we come across that announcement. So please spare some time if you're interested. If you cannot contribute, ideas are so important, right? We can create a problem bank, and then these are the much more. These are the problems we think that should be solved. And see, we can just keep it in a public domain, just like a crowdsourcing kind of, and see how in whatever it can take shape. But that's the second thing that I just wanted to announce, and everybody really thank you. I would hand over to Vasu.